in a spot of this same garden is something a whole lot closer to what we would like to see in a garden this time of year. Gone to the trouble of taking out all of the plants, spread a little bit of straw around to help retain some of the moisture, and of course as it turned out with the type of rains that we've had this fall, that really hadn't been necessary, but it's a good practice and it sure didn't hurt anything. And there has been wheat and Austrian winter peas planted here in this spot where it was tilled up. Want to talk a little bit about the different things that you can plant in a garden as a cover crop and the reasons that you do that. In a new garden where you're having to add all of the amendments as you go, lots of times planting a cover crop is not particularly a good idea. Through the winter you're going to want to be throwing some manure and everything that you can find around the county in there, tilling it up. A new garden generally has got some weeds in it that always need to be tilled and brought to the surface when it's cold, and maybe freeze some seeds and stuff. But yeah, after you get the garden pretty well maintained and stuff, it's a whole lot more time effective to plant a cover crop. Now, Austrian winter peas is one of those things that is really touted as a good soil builder, and it is a good soil builder. Works good as a cover crop, or I say that it works good as a cover crop. It's a good idea for a cover crop. The thing about Austrian winter peas is they won't mature until about next June or July. So when you're wanting to get in here in April to plant something, you're going to have these winter peas that are around here and are just going to be kind of a weed at the time. That's not a bad idea because they are putting nutrients into the soil and shading some of the other weeds and stuff, but at the same time a lot of people have to go in March, spray these with Roundup or mow them and till them, and so they really don't give you the amount of nitrogen fixation that you might really want. Now if this is a deal that you can leave and after they die out midsummer, till them up and then keep it tilled until next spring, a following year, that would be a good idea. But most people don't have that big of a garden that they can kind of lay something by for that length of time. Your other options are to plant wheat, rye, or barley. Now, wheat is one of those things, and that's what they've got planted here. It's easy to grow. You can usually find the seed around. It's fairly inexpensive. Of course, it's planted a little bit thick here in with these winter peas, and that's not that big of a problem this year as wet as it is, but if it gets a little bit dry later on, there may be a considerable amount of dying back from just dry weather, but they may have a chance to do some watering here. So wheat is a good cover crop for most everybody. Rye is a good cover crop, and I'm not talking about ryegrass, I'm talking about cereal rye. And you've really got to get that point across, because if you planted ryegrass out here, it wouldn't do what rye should, and it's going to be that much more of a weed. So when you go down to the co-op and get your cereal rye, it's going to look about like a wheat seed. It's not going to be that little small grass seed, rye grass, that we're used to. So one thing about cereal grain rye is if you've got nematodes, the nematode will work its way into the root of the rye, but it can't work its way back out. So it's a good method of controlling nematodes in a garden. Now, you plant rye in something like this, and not all the nematodes are going to go into all the roots, so you're not going to just wipe them out. But research has shown about 60% of them each year get tied up in the roots of the ryegrass, in the cereal rye. So little by little you can really drop the population of nematodes by planting rye. Barley is the third one of the cereal grains that you might want to plant. And the thing with barley is it manages to loosen up the soil. I don't know how it does it, but where we would grow barley in a field, the plows took the ground different and everything. So You can plant barley. It's kind of hard to find barley seeds sometimes, but if you've got a real hard clay soil that you really have been trying to add a lot of organic matter to, if you can get in a rotation of growing barley, well, that will help quite a bit. Talk a little bit about what you do to a garden in the fall. And this garden here is organic, or they're trying to be organic. And when you're talking about organic, in my opinion, there are several different levels of organic. Some just absolutely will not use any kind of fertilizer, any kind of herbicide, any kind of pesticide, any kind of insecticide or anything. And to me, that really does make it a difficult job gardening. Now, my hat goes off to those people that make that work, but I think they'll be the first one to tell you that they attack it with a fever pitch, and so they really put a lot of work into their garden. A lot of us aren't quite that wanting to spend that amount of time fighting some one thing that a little bit of something could do. Start with the fertilizer. If you're not going to use commercial fertilizer, then you've got a big chore of getting manure, putting it out there, getting it in the right amounts, getting it tilled in, making sure that you don't have too much or too little, and that's going to complicate things a bunch. So fertilizer will make that job a whole lot easier to do. The second thing is herbicides. Something that kills the weeds in your garden. I really have a hard time seeing how you get a whole lot of benefit organically by not using the herbicide to control a weed. And case in point is the Bermuda grass here. If you're growing a garden and you're going to be organic and you've got Bermuda grass, you have got a big chore ahead of you. Almost an unsurmountable chore, but you have definitely got a chore. So that part of it, to me, there's a lot of things that you can save yourself a lot of work by using herbicides. Now, the pesticide part of it, that comes a little closer into my realm of thinking. Not that I'm against pesticides, but I really, when you talk about what to kill insects in a garden, I really start to come way back on the amount of things that I recommend to people. 7 malathion, they're taking some things like kelthane are already gone and stuff, but you really back off on something like that, and then you really have to say, wash it real good before you eat it and stuff like that. But on the other hand, if you're trying to grow a garden in this area and you're not using fungicides, you make the job so much more difficult, because you can't spray a fungicide on, you get a foliar disease, it just takes your plant. As soon as a plant gets some type of something on the leaf, if you're organic, you got to get it out of there and get it away. Sometimes the whole plant gets infected, you take the plant up, you get it away. So to me, they can't take away the fungicides as far as I'm concerned. Sometimes you can take away the pesticides. You can't hardly take away the herbicide, and it is very, very difficult to take away the fertilizer. So that's my way of thinking, and I know there's a lot of people that would argue with that, but this part here is going to be very difficult to get the Bermuda grass controlled in an organic situation like this.